Thank you, sir.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start our workshop. My name is Natasha Chira. I am a mom. I'm a child of God. I'm a graduate of social sciences, and most of all, I love children. I love everything to do with children. I believe the Lord has called me in that. I believe the Lord has called me in that area to nurture children, and I'm very passionate about raising godly children. And that's the whole essence of this workshop. So, without wasting much time, we'll just go ahead. I'll share my screen and we'll start. Sorry, excuse me one moment. Your mic is muted. Yeah. Sorry. So I'll share my screen. Let him walk. He can walk. Let him walk. Okay, so today's workshop is about supporting children's self-management and learning skills. And we'll be focusing on the executive functions of the brain. As we shared on the group, that these are very important because it will help us nurture our children. It will help us to discover their strengths and weaknesses, and actually the strategies as well we can use to help them make sure they thrive and become all that God has actually proposed them to become. So I'll start with this course by Brian Carson. It's from his book called Bigger Picture. So it says children are the greatest natural resource in the world. Our God-given jobs as parents, as caregivers, as teachers, as caretakers is to develop those resources to their greatest potential. And then for us to support and ensure our children become the best versions of themselves and become all that God has created them to be, we have to know how best to support and nurture them both physically and spiritually. In this workshop, we'll look at the executive functions of the brain and how these play a crucial role in the development of our children. So, back to Brent Caston and his book. That book has really been a blessing to me and the rest of my fellow warriors. We have this. We have this. Sorry, sorry. Both of my children have a flu, so it's been a really hectic day. So you have to bear with me. So we're reading. We have a program called the Warrior School, and in the Warrior School, we have a book review. So we're reviewing the book by Ben Carson called The Bigger Picture, and hence why you find all these quotes that I've quoted from the book. So in that book, he says humans are the only creatures on earth to whom God gave huge frontal lobes. Frontal lobes are used for rational thought. As human beings, we come programmed with the ability to extract information from the past, gather information from the present, integrate the data, and project it into the future. In other words, we can plan. So that's what actually makes us different from the rest of the animals. Other animals cannot plan. What the animals do is to actually live on survival mode. All that they're thinking of is how to survive, how to procreate, and then that's it. Whereby with humans, we can actually plan. We can actually look back to how far we've come. We can actually think about where we are and think of what we want to do like where we want to go, what we want our future to look like. So God has actually given us the frontal lobes for a purpose. He has created and designed our brain in a way that is different from the animals for a reason. We have to remember that in Genesis, God actually said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness." And then he gave us dominion. He gave us the dominion and authority and asked us to be fruitful and multiply. So in giving us dominion and authority, he has already equipped us to be able to authorize us to make the most of the life that he has given us. So that we're not just living day-to-day life, so that we're not just existing, we're able to actually impact this world that he created us to live in. So moving on, it says as human beings, we have been given the capacity to analyze, strategize, and prioritize so that we can alter our circumstances. We can anticipate and plan and take action that will even affect our future. So as human beings, we have been given the capacity to analyze, strategize, and prioritize so that we can alter our circumstances. We can anticipate and plan and take action that will even affect our future. So we're not just supposed to just take things as they come. We actually have the capacity to alter our circumstances. So what are the executive functions? We'll be looking at that in a minute. So the executive functions are like the brain's air traffic control system. You see how like in an airport has like a control tower that actually controls all the traffic that comes in. They know all the flights that are coming in, all the flights that need to leave. They tell this one wait, this one go, this one you leave in 30 minutes. So the executive functions of the brain act like that control tower. So there are a set of brain skills that help us to get things done. These are brain skills that help us plan ahead, pay attention, multitask, manage our emotions and behavior, just to mention a few. So I'll dive in more details as we go. I'll break it down for us to be able to actually understand exactly what we're talking about. So the executive functions work alongside your intelligence and creativity to help you achieve your goals. Children are born with executive functions. They are not born with executive functions. They are born with the potential to develop them. So as a child, you know how like children, most of the things that they learn, they actually learn from the world and from the people around them. It's like the process called socialization, right? So it's the same thing with these executive functions. They are learned as the children develop, as they grow, as they look at the world, as they learn to do things, as they learn to conform to society. That's when the executive functions actually fully develop. So executive functions develop most between the ages of 3 to 5, and then during teen and adult years, which means that as the human body, the normal human body is still growing, is still developing. We still have the potential to become all that God wants us to achieve. As a child, just because maybe a child is acting different or is not hasn't reached the target like other children doesn't mean that we actually need to rule them out. There's a potential for them to develop and be able to become all that God has actually all that God has actually planned for them to become. So so adults help children to develop their executive functions because children learn from parents and caregivers. So because children learn from those who are around them, they actually develop their executive functions from them as well. And because every child is different, some children need more support to develop their executive functions than others. And we all have strong executive functions and weak executive functions. And they vary with each individual, like a fingerprint. So no child is the same. No executive function is no the executive functions, the way they operate in a person's mind, in a person's brain, is not the same. It's everybody has a unique fingerprint, unique code, unique DNA. So we can't compare. We can't compare. We can't expect everybody to have the same strengths, same weaknesses. And if a child is not successful at something, it might be because one or more of the executive functions are tricky for them, and not because they are not smart or creative. And this is where I can actually add up to say, as parents, it's very important for us to pay attention to the things we're saying to our children, or the way we are actually treating and handling our children, because it's very easy for us to compare, to say, okay, how come my neighbor's child does this at this age? Or they all go to the same school, and then my neighbor's child is able to maybe color all the picture, and then my child doesn't even do that. There are other children who they are not strong at coloring, like writing, or not writing, but then I should say there are some children who are not good at drawing, and other children are actually good at maths. So there's no way you can actually compare to say because your neighbor's child is good at this thing, then your child needs to do the exact same thing or needs to have the same side of skills. We all have different DNAs. We all have different fingerprints. And because we have different DNAs, different fingerprints, different way that we've been nurtured and created, then we actually have to be graceful and patient. And it's very important as parents, teachers, to actually be able to not look at children as a group, but be able to actually look at them individually, because it's by looking at them individually that we're able to actually understand everyone. We can't expect everybody to just act the same. So if a child is not successful at something, it might be because one or more of the executive functions are tricky for them, and not because they are not smart or creative. So don't rule them out to say, hey, you're not smart, you're not intelligent, or why are you like this? Or that, you know how like African parents, okay, not us in Jesus' name, but then the old generation used to say, the person who is the first position in your class, does he have does he has does he have two heads? What's wrong with your own head? Why are you not passing the way he's passing? It could be maybe your child has challenges with one of the executive functions, and that's why they're not able to perform the way the other person is performing. Or it could be that there are things that they're experiencing that are actually hindering them from fully expressing themselves, or fully utilizing their executive functions the way they need to actually utilize them. Okay, so moving on. So we'll go to the executive functions, we'll talk about them, we'll get to break them down, we'll get to understand them one after the other. So the first one I'll start with is self-control. So the self-control is actually the response inhibition. So the response inhibition is being able to control yourself and where you direct your attention. And some of the examples include getting up in the morning instead of going back to sleep, stopping yourself from eating another delicious cupcake, turning out what is not important. Example, focusing on what the teacher is saying in class instead of maybe looking outside the window, what other people are doing, or somebody playing outside. Being able to get your homework done instead of being distracted by the TV, or distracted by what your siblings are doing. So sorry, I'll be giving examples in a way by it's examples examples to do with the children, so that you understand what exactly we're talking about. I feel like for the examples, it'll be easier for us to relate, to say, okay, maybe my child does this, maybe this is the area that I need to help them with. So it says, focusing on what the teacher is saying in class instead of the construction noise outside, all the while also listening to the teacher's instruction, resisting the urge to blunt out an answer, ignoring your own internal chatter to stay focused on important train of thought. This is whereby you're focusing on what you're doing per time and not thinking of like so many things at the same time. And as adults, it's something that we experience as well because it's very easy to be distracted, especially with social media, with the, with the way social media is. It's very easy for us to start one task and then before you know it, you see a message and you've actually gotten distracted and forgot what you've actually done. So it's something that is actually really normal. And even in adults, we experience this. So for children, you know how like a child's brain is still developing. So with children, it's very easy for them to actually be distracted. So this self-control executive function is something that they are developing as they grow older, as they mature, as they move from one class to the other. You can compare a child who's in like nursery school to a child who is maybe in fifth class and expect them to have the same type of self-control. It's different. A 2-year-old and an 8-year-old cannot have the same type of self-control. So as they mature, as they grow older, the self-control actually gets better and better. So without response inhibition, we act without thinking and we can make poor choices. People who struggle with this executive function appear easily distracted, impulsive, and driven by what's going on around them. And when this executive function is a strength, children are good at waiting their turn, maintaining focus, persisting with difficult tasks, and are less impulsive. So that's for self-control. And then next we move to getting your working memory. So your working memory is like a mental notepad. So it's like a mental notepad that takes down everything that you need to do, that plans your daily activities. We use it to keep pieces of information alive in our minds at once so that we can use them. We use it when we are reading a book and making sense of the whole sentence on the page. We're making our lunch. We are having a conversation with our friend. So it's just like a trail of thought so that you don't forget what you're saying. So this working memory is what actually reminds you to say, oh, this is what I was discussing with this person. This is the next thing that I need to say, or this is what the person said. I'll give an example. Have you ever met people whereby if you're having a discussion with them, everything you're saying, they haven't actually heard a single thing that you're saying. It could be because in their mind, as you're speaking, they're already thinking of what to say, what to respond to you, and therefore they've actually lost their trail of thoughts. So with children, it's easy with this as well. And especially when you like maybe give too many instructions with a child. A child's brain is still developing, so it's very hard to retain too many information. So if you like speak so many things at one time, say, okay, go to the market, go buy this. When you come back, mop the house. When you mop the house, pack up your room, clean your room, pack up your toys. It's very easy for that child to actually get distracted because the information is too much. And then the working memory as well helps us to follow a storyline in a movie. So working memory can become easily overloaded when we're doing something new. When our working memory gets overloaded, we lose information and can feel overwhelmed. And the greater your working memory, the more pieces of information you can use at once, making learning and thinking more effective. So when your child is doing something, it could be that maybe they've been triggered with something and therefore they feel overwhelmed. So it's very hard for them for their working memory to actually retain information because of that trigger that has actually made them like lose everything else that you've actually told them. And so we'll move to the next thing, which is flexible thinking. So mental flexibility is being able to think of new ideas and perspectives. It allows you to switch gears to see things from someone else's point of view. It is the flexibility to change your behavior when situations change or when things don't go to plan. Some examples include changing how we act in different settings. Example, work at work, when you're at work versus maybe when you're at home is two different settings. So you're able to actually adjust to say at work, I need to be formal, or at school, I need to be formal, I need to be respectable, I need to hold my actual thoughts in and not just say everything that comes in my mind, not everything that comes to. I don't need to respond in a rude way or respond the way that I want to respond because I'm at work, I'm at school. But then at home, you can actually be yourself and say, you know what, I'm in my house. I can say whatever I want to say. I can act the way I want to act because nobody is actually watching me. So it's the flexible thinking is being able to actually analyze the situation and think of how actually I need to react to this situation, how I need to behave in this situation. So for children, because their executive functions are still developing, it's it's hard for them to actually be able to like differentiate between home and school. That's how you find your children going to school and being able to tell teacher, oh, teacher, we bought a TV at our house, because the flexible thinking part is still developing. They don't see the difference in saying that at school or saying that at home, or which this is embarrassing and this is respectable. So another example is trying to work out a conflict with a friend or coming up with solutions when things don't go according to plan. So this is able to actually be able to sit and think in the moment to say, okay, since that road is blocked, let me take the other route. Or since we're not going out today, let me find something else to do at home. So it's that part of the brain where you're able to actually uh, think flexibly and not maybe throw a tantrum because we're not going out, we're not uh, taking the bus, but being able to actually strategize and come up with a plan B. Okay, so there are the rest of the things. Sorry, so the next thing is task initiation, which is the ability to begin projects in a timely fashion. And then there's organization, the ability to create and maintain a system to keep track of information or materials. And then there's sustained attention, paying attention even if you're tired or bored. And then there's planning and prioritizing, the ability to create a roadmap to reach a goal or to complete a task, making decisions about what is important to focus on and what is not. So, as I shared previously in the example of like writing homework, so when you get home, this executive function enables you that when you get home, I need to start with my homework. I need to start it at this time and finish in 1 hour, so that after 1 hour I watch a movie. After I watch a movie, it's time for bed. So it's the ability to create a roadmap to reach a goal or to complete a task. So the people who struggle with this executive function find it hard to actually plan ahead. So they are disorganized. They can actually maybe start up a thing and forget, and start up another thing and forget. And as I shared, that these executive functions are things that we can actually even note for ourselves as adults, that if you sometimes maybe start a project and then leave it, and then start something else and then leave it, is because you you're lacking that ability to create a roadmap to reach a goal, to complete a task, making decisions about what is important to focus on. It's hard to make decisions about what is important to focus on and what is not. And then the next thing is emotional control. So this is the ability to manage feelings so you can be productive and successful. And emotional control is something that as humans it takes a while. It takes a while for us to get to the point of where we have emotional stability, where we're grounded emotionally. So we can't expect children to actually have emotional control. It takes a lot of work to just bottle up your feelings. But it's something that we can actually help them to regulate, help them to control, help them to be able to manage their emotions, manage their feelings, express themselves. And then the next thing is time management. So it's the ability to estimate how much time one has, how to use it, and how to stay within time limits and deadlines. It also involves a sense that time is important. As I said, as adults, as I'm mentioning this, maybe you're actually able to actually see, okay, that makes sense. And then the last step is goal directed persistence. So it's following through to the completion of your goal without being distracted by competing interests. So you can see that all these things are related in one way or the other. So the next step is why are executive functions important? Executive function challenges can make daily tasks hard to manage. Example, tidying up the room, getting ready for school, completing assignments, managing their emotions, relating with other people. So executive function challenges can make it harder to get on well with other kids socially. Because if they can't manage their emotions, that means it'll be hard for them to relate with the other children because they can maybe easily fight. They can maybe easily think that the other kids are making fun of them or they're not doing things the way that they want them to get done. So it'll be hard for them to relate or get on well with the other kids. So executive function challenges can make children look lazy, disorganized, and lacking intelligence and creativity. So this is where our role as parents, as caretakers, comes in because with this knowledge, we're able to actually relate to say, okay, so this child is not lazy, he's not disorganized, he's not lacking intelligence. It's not that he's not creative. It's just that maybe he has challenges with executive functions. And if I help him, if I help her, if I put strategies in place, he or she can actually become all that God has created him to become. And there's no need for us to rule him out or actually give up on the person to say, okay, he'll always be like this, or he's not smart, or there's something wrong with his head, or he'll always be like this. There is hope. And the most important thing is that the executive functions develop as the children grow. They are still developing. That means by age and by putting strategies in place, they'll keep getting better and better. So it's important for us to actually be strategic with the way we handle them, be strategic with the way we are talking to them, be strategic with the way we are handling the situation. If the child comes back from school with a homework whereby he hasn't passed, she hasn't passed, don't just be quick to say, you're not smart, or there's something with your head, or use all negative words to actually condemn them. But be able to sit down and say, okay, what could be the main reason they're acting like this? What could be the challenge? What could be the problem? So there are factors that actually affect the executive function. And the first one is immaturity. As we said, the executive functions actually develop and get better with age. So they do not fully mature until in our mid-20s. So until our 20s, we're still developing our executive functions. And then the other factor is modern life. So what do I mean by modern life? Exposure to TV screens, games, phone, internet can actually affect our executive functions. Lack of exercise, stress, improper sleep or nutrition, and sickness can actually impact and affect our executive functions. And another factor is learning disabilities like ADHD, ASD, DCD, specific learning disabilities. And then the other point is adverse childhood experiences. So traumatic events, abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, or a home that maybe has stress, different types of stress, things that are stressful to the child. Maybe arguments between adults can actually affect the executive functions of the brain. So, with all that I've explained so far, now you understand why the devil tries so hard to corrupt our children. This is why childhood, like a child, we need to nurture our children. We need to intercede for their lives and destinies, for their souls, because every trauma that we experience as children will actually affect how we develop, how our executive functions of the brain develop, and as a result, we end up becoming adults that are disorganized, disoriented. We're not working our full potential because of the experiences we had as children. You can encounter maybe people who say, "Oh, I'm forgetful." It's not like maybe they have always been forgetful. It could be that they experienced a trauma as a child, and maybe they haven't been able to navigate that or realize that it's this trauma that they experienced as a child that is actually impacting their forgetfulness, impacting how their brain is working, impacting how organized or how their time management or their emotional control because of something they experienced as a child. It could be maybe, how like sometimes trauma, we experience trauma and don't heal from it. We shut it out. And because we've shut it out, it's still there and we think we've moved on, but it's still there at the back of our souls. It's still there. And because it's still there, it can actually impact how our brain is functioning. So you say, "Oh, I'm forgetful." Why? Because you experienced something traumatizing in your past and you forced yourself to forget. And because you forced yourself to forget, it impacted that part of your brain that remembers things. And then because of that, you end up forgetting things. And you assume, "Oh, it's just the way I am. I forget things." It's not the way you are. It's the trauma. You need to heal from the trauma. And as children, we actually need to, as parents, caretakers, as teachers, we need to be intentional with the way we handle our children, especially in terms of trauma. We need to be open with them to say they can actually talk to us so that we are able to understand what they are going through and be able to assist them so that they don't end up growing, like turning into adults who never really dealt with their past. They're still carrying their past. They think that they're over their past, but they're still carrying their past with them. Okay, and then on the point of stress, it says some stress in life can be useful, but extreme or ongoing stress can impact our executive functions. Stress is how the body and mind responds to anxiety, provoking triggers. Example, learning challenges, being late, not having a friend to play with in school. So there are things that might be regarded as minor, small things that to us are not a big deal, but they're actually causing extreme stress in a child. So to understand how stress disrupts our executive functions, we first need to understand a bit about the brain. So when the brain is encounters a lot of stress, it's like it shuts down. We end up going into like flight mode, whereby it's called like flight mode, whereby our reaction is to just protect ourselves. So because of that, it's like shuts down. The brain just shuts down. So in an example whereby a child is trying to cross the road and then there's a car coming, the brain's first reaction is either to stop still, to just stand still and not react, or to run. So that's what stress does to us. It puts us in that mode. And then for somebody who is experiencing this every day, you can imagine the impact it is actually making on your mind, on your body, on your soul. Have you ever experienced those people who are just fearful for no reason? Every single thing just puts them into fear. It's because of encounters like this. That they were maybe in a stressful situation all their lives, and then even though they are out of that place, their body just go, their body, their mind, their brain just goes back to that situation. Maybe somebody who was somebody who was arrested 2 3 years ago. Every time they see a police car, because they haven't healed from the experience, they get traumatized. So now we'll move to supporting specific executive function challenges. So I'll go back to the list of things that I mentioned earlier and how best we can actually support them. So for the work, we'll start with the working memory. The working memory. So the working memory, just to remind us, is holding information in mind so that we can use it. So what does it look like? It looks like I often forget what I'm saying halfway through. If I get too many instructions, I can't remember them all. Or if I find it hard to do math problems with lots of steps. So what can you do to help a child who's experiencing something like this? You can break instructions down. Give one instruction at a time. Because sometimes parents, we are our own problem. We'll come and send the child, go to the market. After the market, do this, do that. And then when the child fails to do everything, hey, what's wrong with you? Hey, doesn't your brain work? But then we're forgetting that the instructions is way too, like, depending. I'm coming, okay, you go. I'm coming. Take the phone. Sorry for the distraction. So you have to break instructions down, give one instruction at a time, and make a list. Make a list on a phone or paper or using an app so that the child will be able to remember. If maybe you're trying to like get them ready for school, this is where maybe you can make a list. Make a list, put it on a paper, stick it up on their wall, and say, okay, in the morning when you wake up, brush your teeth. After you brush your teeth, take your bath. After you take your bath, put on your body cream. After your body cream, put on your clothes. After you put on your clothes, put on your shoes. After you put on your shoes, take your bag, eat your breakfast, then we go to school. So you're breaking it down into simple steps that the child can actually follow. And then, or you can make a song out of a list of information. And that used to work for us when we were kids, because if they're sending you to the market and then they've given you a list of things for you to remember and not get a smacking, you have to like memorize the list. Okay, groundnuts, peanut butter, bread, milk. So you're singing along the way. But then if you meet a person and they distract you, they greet you, you forget the song. So now you start all over again. So you can make a list out of the information to help the child remember the instructions that you're giving them. And then the other point is to reduce background noise, slow down, say it out loud, visualize what you're hearing. So other children are actually uh, like listen better when they have like a visual assistance of what you're saying. So the other kids, if you just like speak to them, they'll be able to get it. But then there are others that need like a visual representation of what you're saying. Example for like Sunday school teachers. The other children, if you read a story from the Bible, just by reading to them, they'll actually be able to get it. But other children need like a visual, either like maybe print it out on a piece of paper or bring something that they can watch for them to actually be able to get what you're trying to say. This is the same thing with me. Like when I'm reading the Bible, I read it and then I need like a visual representation to like get it clear. So it's either I have to draw it on a piece of paper or I have to look for a video on YouTube that explains the thing better, and then I'll be able to actually understand it. So the other point says believe children when they say that they forget. They're not lying, or they're not trying to be silly, or they're not trying to not listen to you. believe them. It's because you said too many things and their memory is overloaded. They cannot remember. And then allow time for them to think. So if you're telling them this is what you have to do, don't just say, okay, oh yeah, go and do it right away. Allow them time to think and actually let it sink down in the brain to say, this is what I actually need to do. And then place important items where they cannot be missed. So this is where it's important for us to organize their rooms, organize our houses in a place whereby it'll be easy for them to get the things that we're actually telling them to do. And then the next point is self-control. So self-control is being able to stop and think before you act, resisting the urge to say or do things. So what does it look like? It looks like I blunt stuff out without thinking. I start to work before I've heard all the instructions. I need to go first. Like those people who have those children who have like the impulse to say, oh, I need to be first to go out of the class, first to get things done, first to do everything. So what can you do? You can break tasks down, give one instruction at a time, minimize distractions, teach to count to 10 before acting, practice this by counting together out loud before making a decision, allow them to keep hands in pockets, or use fidget toys, or let your child take a break from a situation that is upsetting to them, and then get lots of movement in. And the most important factor is that we need to model self control. If, as a parent, as a teacher, as a guardian, you have no self control, how do you expect the children to have self control? So it's not only about the children, it's also about us. So we need to model self control. You're on the road, you're driving, and then somebody is trying to, like, somebody is moving slow. Mama Desha is laughing. So you're driving, somebody is moving slow, and then you're like, hurry now. Hurry, why are you driving slow? And then you're trying to overtake, you're exhibiting, you're actually showing lack of self control. So, how do you expect your children, to actually exhibit self control when you, as a parent, you're not controlling yourself? You're not showing any self control. So, we need to model self control. We need to actually be examples to the children to say, okay, this is what I want to do now, but I'll be patient and wait because I'm exhibiting how I need to like uh, control myself. This is how I can actually show that I'm exhibiting self control. So the example would be like, I really want to sit down and watch TV, but I know I need to make dinner first. And then if you're showing things like that, the child will be able to actually say, oh, I want to watch cartoons, but I know that I need to actually write my homework first. So the next executive challenge is flexible thinking. So flexible thinking is the ability to shift easily from one idea, activity, or way of looking at things and being able to adapt. So what does it look like? I really dislike when plans change unexpectedly. I find it hard to work or play in groups. I prefer my own ideas. I find it hard to see other ways to solve a problem. So what can you do to help? Give lots of notice and reminders about changes to the schedule. Normalize making mistakes. Tell them it's normal. We all make mistakes. And actually put in strategies to say, okay, if you make a mistake, this is how I can actually help you so that next time you don't do it. Model perspective taking. I'm going to put myself in your shoes. That way, we're actually teaching the children to be able to put themselves in the shoes of other people when things happen. And then support your child to come up with a plan A, B, and C. And then, as I said in the previous point, it's actually up to us as well to model these things. Because if we're the type that if plans change, we're actually giving up to say, I hate it when people just change plans suddenly like this. I don't like it. What is this? We're actually portraying to the child that that is normal, that they should actually be acting the same way. But then if we're able to actually say, okay, this didn't work out, then okay, that's okay. We're gonna move to plan B. or if this doesn't work out, this is what we're going to do instead. We're actually portraying ourselves as an example to the children. So the next point is attention. So paying attention even if you're tired, bored, or not interested. So what does it look like? My mind wanders off when I'm reading and I realize I haven't been paying attention. And this usually happens to children if they're reading a book. They're reading the book, but then they've lost the storyline. So they're just reading it for the sake of reading. And sometimes you know how like we're punishing the children to say, okay, you did something bad, go read your book. And therefore reading a book doesn't becomes like a punishment rather than something that they would enjoy. So it's very easy for them to actually derail. Like as they're reading, their mind is wandering off because that thing has become a punishment rather than something that they enjoy. So when listening to someone talk, I often lose track of what they're saying. I'm easily distracted by what is going on around me. So what can you do? Develop a homework space and time and stick with it. That will actually be able to activate the brain to say, okay, when I sit here to get things done. When I sit here, it's time to do homework. So they'll be able to focus. Provide brain breaks, get moving, allow wind down time after school. So when they come back from school, allow them time to actually rest and reset their mind before proceeding to homework. Because if you just come from school, if they just come back from school and straight to homework, their brain is exhausted. They might be hungry, they might be tired, and therefore they will not be able to actually pay attention. So break tasks into small chunks. Give clear one-step direction. So one thing at a time. Remove clutter or anything that might be distracting. Switch off the TV, remove the phone, remove the game. Make sure that they focus on the homework. When they're done with the homework, they move to the next thing. Use a child's name or physically prompt them before you provide a direction. That will help them to actually pay attention. Set a timer for work sessions. Appeal to your child's interest or reward them for completing a task or schoolwork. So they'll be able to actually pay more attention if they know that, okay, at the end of this thing, I'm actually getting a treat. At the end of this thing, I'm actually getting this. Or maybe instead of like just say, okay, after doing homework, you watch TV. Say, okay, if you finish your homework well and get everything done, you'll be able to watch TV longer, or you'll be able to watch the program that you like. So the next thing is organization. So coming up with and following steps to keep track of information or things. So what does it look like? My room, desk, and school bags are pretty messy. I often lose things or leave things behind. I find it hard to organize my thoughts to get points across. So, what can you do? Establish a daily routine as much as possible. Being able to predict what is going to happen will help children to organize their behavior better. Clearly communicate changes in schedule ahead of time to help reduce worry and allow for follow through. Create systems. Have a place for everything ahead of time. Books, notebooks for each class or for each subject, a place where they put their dirty clothes, a specific place to put their bags or something like that. So just make sure everything is organized to help them. That way they'll be able to pay attention easily. And when everything is organized, they'll be able to like do the tasks that they need to do without them getting distracted. So use picture schedules or planners, checklists, or like electronic organizers to help them organize their day and prepare themselves for transitions. And then color code different books or code P's by subject. So you can just buy like blue is for maths, English, red is for English, physical science has yellow. That way it'll be easy for them to get organized. So you can use checklists for leaving the house maybe every morning so that they'll be able to actually tick and say, this is the task that I've actually completed. And then you can schedule organization time and reduce clutter. So we're nearly there. We're nearly there. And then the next point is getting task started, which is task initiation. So this is being able to get to get start an action or activity independently. So what does it look like? I find it hard to start my homework. I procrastinate. It's hard to get going in the morning. I prefer to follow what other people are doing. This is very important for us as adults as well. So what can you do? Help with starting. Have them tell you the first thing they're going to do. Encourage them to try to write the first sentence in the first minute. Sometimes like talking to people can actually help you start something. So you've been procrastinating something for a long time. When you actually call your friend to say, this is what I want to write, as you're talking to them, you're actually like you're dividing the ideas to say, okay, this is where I actually need to start with, or recording it on the phone, to say, okay, I need to do my homework. This is what I'm gonna start with. As you're replaying the recording, it's easy for you to actually say, okay, I might just start with this because this is what I actually the recording says that I'm gonna start with this, so it'll be very easy for you to actually get a head start. So organize work time with a timer, make it playful. Example, make getting started like a race with a countdown. So you set up your timer to say, okay, 30 minutes starts, and then it'll be more interesting to the child. It'll be like a game, we're racing. So let me get things done. So work in short bursts with breaks in between. Teach help seeking skills and positive self-talk. Check in frequently to make sure that they're actually doing the things that they actually said they're going to be doing. Use underlining and highlighting for significant parts of direction. Checklists and calendars can help organize. Break tasks down. Give them just one thing to start. Makes tasks easier it makes tasks easier if they look too daunting. Encourage good enough rather than perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Encourage them that it is actually good enough. If they actually start on one thing, it's better than for them to not start at all. Give choices where possible. Incorporate areas of interest into tasks. Example, maybe if you're doing maths, bringing something that they like, maybe the price of toys in the math equation, it'll be able to actually interest them to finish the equation because it's something that they actually really like. And then use rewards. And then emotional control. So this is managing feelings so that you can be successful and productive. So what does it look like? If something frustrating happens, I can take a long time to calm down. I get very upset when I get corrected or if I don't get things my way. I can hold grudges and find it hard to get over things. So what can you do? Allow a child to take a break when they're feeling frustrated. Teach your child to recognize and name their emotions. Example, I'm feeling a little frustrated because I didn't get to finish my art, but I can handle it and I'm going to be okay. You can actually use colors as well to help them express their emotions. So if they're angry, you can say, I'm feeling red. They can say, I'm feeling red. If they're excited, they can say, oh, um, I'm feeling yellow or I'm feeling blue or any bright color. And then that way they'll be able to express themselves when they're upset. When they can't really break down their emotions or express how they're feeling, they can actually just say, okay, I'm feeling blue, I'm feeling red, I'm feeling green, and then you'll be able to actually understand how they're feeling. So practice calming strategies with your child, deep breaths, counting down, encouraging making a good enough start on tasks or activities. And the next one is keep going. So this is persevering and completing tasks. So what does it look like? I like to help, but I don't like finishing jobs all the way. If I start something tricky and I can get it right away, I can't get it right away, I give up. If I get distracted partway through a task. So what can you do? Use a visual timer to make tasks feel doable. Break tasks down into smaller steps and take breaks along the way. Connect completing a task to something valuable and interesting to them, as I said. So if you finish your homework, you watch your favorite TV show. If you get your homework done the whole week, you get a treat on Friday. So provide choices and check in often and teach them problem solving. Teach problem solving. And then the other part is planning and prioritizing. So what does it look like? I spend too much time doing less important things, and then I don't have time to do the things that are important. I don't plan ahead and usually don't have the things I'm supposed to have with me in school. I get stuck on small and important details. So what can you do to help? Ask what's the most important part of this project? Where should I start? So this is where we need to get involved in what they are doing and actually make sure that uh, we're following on the tasks that they're being given in school or wherever they're being given. Set time aside to get all the materials that you need first. Make a to-do list and go back and order them by importance. Start with number one. So you make a to-do list and actually prioritize to say, okay, this is what I'm starting with. This is the most important, and then after that, this is what I need to do next. And start with the trickiest part of homework or tasks, and then break tasks down into mini goals. The reason why you need to start with the trickiest part of the homework is because when you start with the easiest task before you get to the trickiest, the child will be already exhausted or overwhelmed. So it'll be really hard for them to actually engage with the tricky thing. And then the last part is time management. So what does it look like? In school, I'm often surprised when my time to finish a task is up. I'm usually late because I've lost track of time. I'm often unfamiliar with my schedule, even though it has been the same for a while. So what can you do? Use timers and alarms for countdowns. Use visual schedules and calendars. If your child can tell the time, get them to wear a watch or sit where they can see a clock. And practice estimating time needed for different tasks. Example, how long do you think it can take you to clean your room or finish the assignment that I've given you? And then set limits for social media and television time. Avoid overscheduling because children need downtime too. And model and discuss thinking ahead, such as putting clothes out for the next day. So it starts with us as parents, because all these things, all these strategies that we can actually use to even help the children starts with us. Because the more we do things like that, the more the children are actually able to implement to say this is actually what we need to do. This is actually what can actually be helpful. So, how to support our children as caregivers, parents, and teachers? God has entrusted us not only with the lives but souls of our children. Our first assignment is that of an intercessor. Why am I saying this? Because as we're interceding for our children, we're able to actually see the blueprint that the Lord has given to them. We're actually able to see them the way God sees them. So it is very important for us to see our children the way God sees them. And as we raise and take care of them, we need to do it with a bigger picture mentality. So as intercessors, as we are interceding and praying for them, what we are praying for is that God shows us a bigger picture. God shows us out their purpose. God shows us where He's taking them to, the path that they need to walk on, what they will become, which area they need to like walk in. And then that way, even if we see them having challenges with executive functions or any other area, we're able to actually align to say, okay, this is what God says you'll become. So let's say his purpose is to be maybe a scientist, and you see the child actually struggling with time management or with being organized. So because God has already shown you his purpose and destiny, you'll be able to actually sort it out in a place of prayer and actually implement these steps to say, you know what, as a scientist, you can be organized because you lose your work now. So you'll be praying, knowing that okay, so that you know that this is an attack. This area has to be corrected because without this area, this child cannot reach the step or the destiny that God has actually planned for him. So, as parents, we need to pray. We need to pay attention to our own executive functions and feelings. We need to be mindful of the things that we say to our children because some of these things, remember we talked about stress and trauma and soul wounds. Some of this trauma and soul wounds and stress is because of us, the things we say to our children, how we react to them. They're coming home with issues, they're stressed at school, we're even adding more fire to the wound instead of actually quenching the fire. So put yourself in their children's shoes. Put yourself in your children's shoes. You were once a child. You know how you were behaving then. And sometimes we're carrying our own trauma, the things that we used to do in our past. We are reacting to our children because you used to do some things maybe that they're doing now, or maybe you just think that those are the things that they'll be doing, and then we end up just lashing out to them. But we need to put ourselves in their shoes and be able to actually understand their emotions, the way they see things, the way they see the world. So we need to manage stress in the homes, manage our own stress so that we don't project it to them. And we need to connect with them before we direct. It takes us having a connection with them for the children to be able to actually understand us and understand exactly what we're actually telling them, or what we want them to actually do. So it says that you need to pay attention to your executive functions and feelings as well, because when you notice that you're feeling stressed, try to do something about it rather than just project on the children. So we've come to the end of our workshop. I hope you stayed with me throughout and we did not lose you along the way. So any questions or contributions, anything you want to share, anything that stood out for you, anything that made sense, anything that is confusing that you'd like us to clarify? Oh, go ahead and unmute yourself, sir.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, I want to say thank you very much. At least I've understood some things which you have taught so far. And without taking much time, I just want to ask a question that I don't know how to put it. How do you manage a child that is when they say a child is stubborn, as in very stubborn,
Mm.
how do you manage such things?
Thank you so much for your question, sir. I think the first step, as I said, that as parents, our first role is us being intercessors. So the first way in managing that child is actually go back to a place of prayer, because it is God who knows the child better than even us as parents. So no matter how stubborn a child is, no matter how difficult it is God who knows the child better than us. We are only caretakers. The Lord has just entrusted the children to us to take care of them for Him. So it is Him we have to go back to. Anything that makes you worried, anything that makes you stressed, everything, anything that makes you concerned as a parent, you go back to the Father to say, God, this is the child that you've given me. This is what I'm worried about. These are my concerns. Please help me. And what are the strategies that I can put in place to help him? Because sometimes we forget as parents, we try to solve the situation physically. So if the maybe child is being stubborn, our first thing will be like, oh, why is he being rude? Maybe if I discipline him, he will listen. But the more we discipline, we don't know. You don't know. You might not know what exactly is the root cause of that stubbornness. Sometimes it could be that it's a way of the child wanting attention. So they try to be stubborn to just get your attention. It could be sometimes that maybe they're experiencing something in school that is bothering them, and therefore they just project it as stubbornness. Or sometimes it could be insecurity. They're being bullied in school, but when they come back home, instead of just saying this is what I'm experiencing in school, they just try to like act like, oh, I don't care, I don't do this. Sometimes it could be maybe their circle of friends. Their circle of friends, they see other people being stubborn, and therefore they think that that's the correct way of doing things. So go back to the place of prayer, go back to the child's maker, which is God, our maker, and lay all these things down to say, this is what he's doing. How can I help him? What do I need to do? I'll give an example of the Ben Carson book, Gifted Hands. He shared a situation where, as they were growing up as kids, him and his brother were always being stubborn, always wanting to watch TV all the time, always wondering why their mom was always strict with them, and why the other kids, would do things, would do everything that they wanted to do, and they weren't allowed. And then it took the mom praying to God to say, help me, give me a solution to this. And then God gave her an idea. So every child is different. We cannot have like a possible solution to say this is the one solution for stubbornness. But what you can do is go back to God and ask to say, God, this child that you've blessed me with, this is the situation. How best can I actually help him? I hope I answered your question, sir. Was I able to answer your question, sir? I hope you can hear me. Okay, does anybody else have a question or a contribution?
Tasha, let me add to what you just shared. Sometimes it will look like it's spooky. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adeshawa Greg-Ighodaro. Sometimes it will look like it's spooky when we say intercession. That's the honest truth. Somebody thinks, oh, that's not supposed to be the answer and all of that. But the truth is, I'm going to tell you a story. Somebody shared how they had this son, true life story. It's not a fable. They had a son, very blessed child, and all of a sudden they realized that, like you said, the child was acting stubborn. And so it was so difficult. And you know how sometimes it feels as if, oh, this child is very difficult. What can I do? And it became such a troubling matter that the father, not even the mother, the father decided that he was going to fast and he was going to pray to find out why exactly is this child like this. Sometimes when we say that the prescription is prayer or intercession, it looks like, so how are other people doing it that are not praying? Why does it have to be prayer? There has to be something, dramatic or something miraculous that I can do. And so the father went to fast and pray, and God asked him just one question. He said, what's the name of the child? And he said, his name is Afolabi. And God said, what do you call him? And he said, we call him Folly. Folly. And he did not need God to say to him, you are the one that made him foolish. Because that's what stubbornness is. You're the one that made him foolish. So your case or this case might not be that, oh, the father said something or the mother said something. Or sometimes it's the parents or it's the namings. It might not be the name of the child, might be something that has been said, might be some ensnarements, by the words of our mouth. We could, like Natasha kept reiterating, how it begins with us. It begins with us. So there could have been something that triggered that. No child is born stubborn. No child is made stubborn. There is not one child that God delivered into our hands that has a problem. So if that child came to this earth and we're noticing certain things, I'm very happy that, we're having this conversation and, we're able to ask this kind of question. There is not one child that God has given us that came as a problem child. And so I thought to share that so that we'll know that it's not just, spooky to say, oh, go and pray. It's not that, oh, we can't come and tell you these are 5 things you should do. But I tell you that those 5 things may not necessarily be your 5 things. They may not necessarily be the thing that you need to do. See, they just needed to stop calling that child fully. And everything went back to normal. I'm telling you, honest truth, true life story. But I pray in the name of Jesus that the wisdom that every parent needs to realign, redirect the functionalities of the children that God has entrusted in our hands, that God will give us in the name of Jesus. I pray that we'll stop struggling over our children. I pray that in the name of Jesus, their manual, their manufacturer's manual, heaven will reveal to us, and we will be the parents that God has entrusted to birth children that are executing great and mighty things in this earth that would affect and impact their generations in the name of Jesus. Thank you very much, Natasha. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I was just asking that, does anybody else have a question or something they want to share? Or maybe a takeaway, something that stood out to you during the session?
Okay, please go ahead, Mr. Ladimije.
Okay, I want to ask is this is one of those questions that even bothers me in church. Let's say, like, for example,
Can you speak up a little, please?
okay, let's say, for example, I'm a pastor, for example. Just give an example. I'm a pastor, for example, and the first child.
We can
Okay,
hardly
what about
hear
now?
you. Let's say, for example, and then we didn't hear anything again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, but it's still low.
How? Sorry, what about now?
Okay, yes, better. Thank you.
Okay, let's say, for example, I'm a pastor, for example, and the first child is a male or is a female, and there's this um, conception or this kind of what people have totally seen something to be that, okay, let's say, okay, I'm a pastor, the first child is a male or a female, and the second, third are not. They are either male or female, but the first child, it only looks as if one way or the other, is it compulsory that God must call the first child to become a pastor? Or I don't really know if you understand what I'm trying to
I
pick
understand
up
you.
here. That is it composed? Can't God choose the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth? Must he always be the first one? Must he be okay, the first son? Oh, you are the first male. Oh, see, I'm a pastor. Oh, you too. Ah, you must look for a way to become. You must just become a pastor. You must be called. You must. I don't know if you really. Is it really
I understand
necessary?
you.
Okay.
And I think that the first thing we need to know as parents and caregivers is that before any child came into this world, they already had a destiny. They already had a system. They already had a structure from heaven. They already had a calling. They're already been sanctified and separated for who or what they are being called to be. They are already a certain type of solution. If you look at Jeremiah chapter 1, we're able to decode that. Now, as the parent or as the guardian, it is our responsibility. It is normal for people to have expectations, but expectations of people must not become the pressure that makes you begin to think that a child should be a certain character. It is our responsibility as parents to find out either, and this is not just the role of the mother, it's the role of the mother and the father. If we look at the story of Samson in scripture, we find that after the angel appeared to Samson's mother to say that, oh, you're going to have a son and this and this and this, and give her the prerequisites and requirements and everything that was going to, the parameters that were going to guide the guy's life. The father said, I also want to see this angel of the Lord that you speak about. So the man took a responsibility to seek God and say, this thing my wife told me, speak to me. I want to see. Let that angel come back. And the angel came back. And the day the angel came back, he was not there. The wife went to call him. Why am I trying to say that? It is our responsibility as parents. If we don't do it, the pressure to perform, the pressure to make that child perform outside or even within his calling will push us to do certain things. But if, for example, I know that my firstborn is just an example. If, for example, I know my firstborn is supposed to be a powerful person in the marketplace, and my secondborn, God says to me, oh, he's an apostle or he's a pastor, I already know my responsibility. I already know my role. I already know what is expected of me, or I assume at least that if this is what this person is going to be, if the first one is going to be a marketplace powerhouse, then every education, everything, edification that I have to put in place, every wisdom, every knowledge, every understanding has to be tailored in that direction. If I know that, oh, this one is going to be an apostle, so their educational background might differ. Their exposures will definitely differ. The relationships I expose them to will differ. And that is because I know. So if somebody comes to say to me that, oh, you are the pastor, the person that's supposed to take over you is the first one, I'm going to ask the person, are you the one that sent the child to me? If you and I can settle before anybody has a say, if you and I can settle in the place of prayer who these children are, we're good to go. Expectation of men is normal. It's normal. But the only thing that we must ask ourselves and be guided by is, what has God said to you about that child? Mary knew about her child. Elizabeth knew about the child. Zachariah knew about the child. Samson's mother, Samson's father knew about the child. There is a way it helps you to bring up those children in the way of the Lord. When the Bible says bring up the children in the way of the Lord, it is specific to each of the children's destinies. Yes, there are generic things that you can do, but there are specificities that you can do. It also guides the kind of school you take them to. It guides the kind of guardians you get for them. It guides, even if when you want to get a help in the house, you are thinking these children must not be corrupted. And so you are guided by your decisions are 100% guided by the revelation that you have concerning those children. So if you ask me, or if people say, I really do not care about what people say, if I have not found out what God has said, because what God has said is final. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you very much, ma.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anybody has any other question? Anybody has any other question? Okay, while we wait for that, I want to ask us to please, in one word, please just share with us how this question, how this session was. How was this session? I'm going to post the link in the chat room, and I'm going to just please ask us, how was this session? So just click that link and type for us, how was the session? Please click the link so that we can release you. You know it's late already. Please click the link and just type for us. As you type for us, we're going to see it. No, click that link I just posted in the chat box. We're going to see it on our screens. Please, can you do that for me? Can you do that for us? This is just one of the many other things. Awesome. Thank you. I say insightful. This is just one of the many other things that we're going to do for children with the work that God has given us. 100% we realize and see that God is impressing on our hearts so seriously how we must begin to intentionally bring these children up according to the destiny that He has already set for them from the beginning of this age. How has the session been? Educational, enlightening, insightful. Okay, I see you in the chat box. Informative, great teaching, education, impressive and inspiring, insightful, informative. Okay, thank you very much. You can keep the questions coming. So this is the Warrior Kids School. And I will just quickly share with you what God is asking us to achieve with this. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 6. It says, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, the calf and the young lion, and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. A little child shall lead the wolf and the lamb, the leopard and the young goat, the calf and the young lion, the fatling together. It says, the cow and the bear shall graze, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the nursing child shall play by the cobra's hole, and the weaned child shall put his hand in the viper's den. Our assignment in this season our assignment in this season is to raise warrior kids. One of the things that we believe that God is asking us to do, and part of why we did this workshop, is to ensure that Isaiah chapter 11 from verses 5 to 8 becomes a reality in the life of our children, that they can stand in their different places and spaces and bring peace, prosperity in the world, in their spaces, in their education, when they come out of school, that is their formative years, when they become teenagers. And so we're going to be doing this. I want to just quickly ask you, sometime in the month of March, or before then, in fact, we're going to have prophetic prayer sessions with children, just true children. If you would like your kids, your grandkids to be a part of it, we're going to send you a link. We're going to send you a link. I'm going to put the link in the chat box now, just for those who would like to fill the form now. Just please fill the form. I will send you the link on the WhatsApp group. I hope you're there. And then we're just going to, ask you just a few details, and when it is time, we'll send you a message to invite your kids. You're going to see your kids begin to grow spiritually. Your kids will grow spiritually. Your kids will go in their leadership and executive roles. Every child is a leader, and they are not just going to be leaders in politics. When they get to politics, and they get to media, and they get to arts and science, and they get to technology, they are there with the understanding of the Spirit. They are not just there because, oh, mommy puts me here, or mommy's friend is the one that gave me the job, or, oh, I'm doing a vacation somewhere. They are there, they understand spiritual assignment, regardless of whatever thing that they're going to do. And so I've posted the form link in the chat box, in the chat room. Please feel free to click it. If you're on the WhatsApp group, you're also going to get it. We're also going to send an email just so that you are able to partake of it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're excited about what God is about to do in our lives and with you, even as you have collaborated with us tonight. I am particularly excited as to what you're going to begin to see your children manifest. And I mean within the first 6 months this year. I'm not talking about the end of the year. In the first 6 months, you're going to see your children begin to walk in spiritual authority. And I cannot wait to hear your testimony. So we'll send the emails out. Please remember, everything your child will play out is largely dependent on you. Don't pass your trauma to those kids. Don't pass your soul wounds to those kids. Have conversations with them. When they are hurt, it's a soul wound and you need to deal with it. When they come and they say, oh, somebody rejected me, or somebody said I don't sing well in school, or somebody said this to me in school, it's important that you address it. Don't just say, oh, don't mind them. No, give them a reason and remove that word that has been planted in their soul and replace it with the word of life. We need to begin to be intentional about how these children are growing. Please pay attention to them. When it comes to our children, be quick to listen, slow to speak, please, and slow to get angry. I know that sometimes it can really be annoying. You're trying to do something, they're trying to climb your head. Even while we're at this, my kid came, was trying to poke his head. I said, no, you saw Natasha's own too. So it is normal, but I always say we do not apologize for being parents. We don't apologize. It's an entrusting. We don't apologize, right? And so it is important that even with these realities, we are speaking life. You are the prophet over that child first. So before you begin to give yourself assignment of running to one mountain to the other mountain to pray for that child, the words of your mouth, the spirits that you pass on to them is very important. When you're agitated, when you're anxious, communicate it with them. You may not necessarily say the details, but you can say to them, please, can you give me some minutes? I need to sort myself out. I'm not in the mood. So they understand and they respect boundaries. They understand. So when they're in that kind of situation, they don't just shut people out. Some of us don't know how to keep relationships today because they did not teach us. And so because of how we are feeling, we have shut down relationships that should have blessed us. And we are passing on those things to our children. And so those children grow up as well. And people that are trying to love them and take care of them and, just build something remarkable with them, they are also shutting them down. Why? Because that is how we passed it to them. We must make a decision to ourselves that how we were brought up, we will not bring them up that way. No, we will not say, oh, African mentality. There's a kingdom mentality that is higher than African mentality. There is a way that we can, and that includes disciplining a child. I'm not saying, you can ask my son, he still got discipline this afternoon. So we are not saying no discipline. We are just saying we will do it the kingdom way, because nothing must dent their image. The things we are struggling with right now, some of us, they call us as adults and say, oh, come and do this thing for us. And we are so scared. We can't do it. Why? Because when we're growing up, people have said to us, you can't be better than this. They have said certain things. Oh, and so you are from where? And so, you're growing, and even teachers won't give you the opportunity to express your leadership skills. And somehow, because of that, you grew like that. So now you are seeing opportunities, but you have to psych yourself, motivate yourself. Somebody has to pray for you before you own what is yours. That's not how it's meant to be. We're supposed to be strong, courageous, and very bold. And so we're trying to make sure that we are raising the next generation of leaders and powerhouses. And I know that with your collaboration and partnership with God and with us, we'll be able to see this and do this. This year, we'll see remarkable results. Thank you very much for joining the session. Once again, if you're on the WhatsApp group, we'll post the link there. God bless you. Natasha, do you want to share one more thing before we go? Or we're good? We're good. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. God bless you for staying till the end. Have a great rest of